I'm going to give you the overall overview from a national framework, national process, and going on deep into specific projects that we are undertaking, but then also coming back about what are we doing for cities, not just big infrastructure projects, but big impact projects are always led by the Prime Minister himself, and he focuses on what is economic transformation program, the government transformation program, and the other aspect is political transformation program. So it's a three-pronged strategy. And Malaysia has chosen 12 what we call national key economic areas, and for example, some of the areas that we have focused on is tourism, education, communications, etc., and all that, which has high impact, high visibility, and also high investments. But Kuala Lumpur is special because Kuala Lumpur is the only geographical area that the country has selected to become a major investment and major growth area actually. And what we intend to do is to become the top economic city of the world by 2020. As we talk about human resources, we're not just talking about the people that we have here, the workforce that we have here. Malaysia looks at it right from the start in terms of our education system. So primarily is that we focus on science and mathematics. Unfortunately, we've done some research and benchmarking. Malaysia's results has not been actually great. But with this transformation on education, we hope to be able to change that and putting a plan that's able to make our young children to be able to meet up the global standards. Start out from preschool, and we focus on Linus, which is essentially mathematics and science, and we also focus on high-performing schools. So this slide is just to show you from a national angle how education is an important part of our human resources agenda. Ministry of Education has just launched the education blueprint that goes up to 2025, that has 11 shifts to transform the system. It was a massive undertaking. I think the consultant McKinsey was helping us on this. They actually provided a benchmark and the best practice in the world, and we now focusing on 11 shifts to transform the system. The 4 parts that we're looking at is, in terms of good education system, is about principles, that they need to be benchmarked and they have KPI monitoring. Teachers needs to be trained and have continuous professional development. Parents' engagement and them monitoring the students and the children and all that is very key. Plus, what we have is higher order thinking skills. It essentially means is how do you use technology to be able to collaborate between students, teachers, and also with parents. Out of 10,000 schools that we have in Malaysia, we have targeted that 568 primary school teachers have received awards, new deals to ensure that they get better pay and better remuneration. People mention about technology and internet access. So Malaysia, although is highly urbanized, but a lot of our population is still in rural areas. For us to bridge that gap is that we are able now to actually have internet accessibility. So it's a program conducted by the MOE, Ministry of Education, to enable internet accessibility for the students in rural areas with a laptop in hand to be able to use that for them to access information. What we realize as well, as we go on, we cannot just have college degrees, PhDs, or even masters. What we need to have more is people with vocational training. And that's been lacking on our part because the nuts and bolts and people who make things done, who make things happen, are people who come from this particular area, which is technical and vocational education training. We are really working with the private sectors on this. For example, in the state of Johor, we plan to build Pengerang in oil and gas terminal hub, which is a major investment by the country or by Petronas, which is about $20 billion for the next 10-15 years. So Petronas is building up their own, what I would say, vocational training, working with the Ministry of Human Resources to have that capability to meet up the necessary requirements of that industry. Under the Economic Transformation Program, the aspiration is to have 3.3 million jobs created by 2020. So we've created what we call a corporation called Talent Corporation that is able to bring back talent from overseas and also build up the capability we have in the system. The Petronas has approved the final investment decision of the 88 billion ringgit development, which is about 25 or 30 billion US dollars of Pengerang Integrated Complex Oil and Gas. So what we need now actually is because so many major projects are coming up in the country, and Malaysia, Singapore, in the context of KL Singapore high-speed rail, is coming up as well. Malaysia is what I would say a medium-sized country. It needs all the talent that it can get. Now, we've been very open towards immigration, whether it be laborers or whether it be professionals, but we've realized also that a lot of women that we have, either from good education or even just general mothers or at home, have been underutilized. We have not actually channeled or leveraged on their talent. So the government again has actually, especially in the corporate sector, especially in Kuala Lumpur, is now promoting women in leadership in the corporate sector. So I think the overall gender composition in terms of these people working is still predominantly male. And in terms of the board, we're not doing so well, and in terms of top management, it's still women participation is still very low. When Malaysia did this decision to actually promote women in corporate sectors, we based it upon 3 key areas, and based on benchmarking and based on advice from other multinationals or even developed countries. There's an environmental aspect to it. There's also a social aspect to it. There's a governance to it. But the social aspect, diversity, is very key because we're leveraging on the talent that Malaysia has. The Prime Minister announced a 30% target for women in decision-making positions by 2016. That's a highly ambitious agenda. If you go back into one step, a lot of our women are very successful. We have our central bank governor, Tan Sri Zeti, is highly successful, world-renowned banker, and all major CEOs and all that are women. But it's not enough, because we realize if you looked at the public institutions in Malaysia, 60%, more than 60% of them are women. And getting very, very bright students here, but a lot of women. But as we go down to detail, when they start to have families, when they start working and all that, they take a break, and we lose out on talent, they continue not working. So we are trying to put in place, in the context of Kuala Lumpur itself, very flexible working arrangements, whether I have flexi benefits or flexi work arrangements or part-time, to be able for us to leverage on women participation in the corporate sector. Many multinationals or world-renowned leaders have mentioned that it is very important to have women in running businesses for Malaysia. And because Malaysia, as I mentioned, is a mid-sized country, we need every talent that we have to help support its agenda. This is just to give an overall view what Malaysia is doing in terms of human resources challenge. But in the context of managing projects, when we undertake a massive project like the MRT, the government has not been rigid about taking up talent from outside. So like I mentioned, we've set up an intervention, set up a new corporation that supersedes everything else that has been done before, and then we pull in people from the private sector with private sector pay. And that has helped reaps many, many rewards, because as I mentioned earlier on, our MRT project now is on track, on schedule, on budget, and with appropriate reporting, with engagement to the people on the ground. So that's an example that the kind of intervention that the government has done in the context of cities development for Kuala Lumpur.